There we go. Okay, right. Sue, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure, absolute pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me, and it's great to spend my lunchtime with you.
Lunchtime? Wow. Okay. Yeah. I get
Yeah.
so disorientated with all the time zones, you know. It's what 5 p.m. here in the Scottish Highlands, and it's currently snowing pretty hard outside the window. So very different environments right now.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm not sure if there will be people that are connected with you in our audience, but others that you maybe are meeting you for the first time. So if I understand, I mean, I was trying to kind of go through your LinkedIn profile, and you seem to be involved in so many different things. I mean, in your capacity as sort of faculty chair of the Digital Marketing Certificate Program at the University of South Florida,
Yeah.
is how we were introduced to you. But you're doing an awful lot in the world of digital marketing. Could you just give us a wee idea of the kind of things you're involved in, and what led you into this angle, you know, of digital
Sure.
marketing from the kind of education and consulting side?
Yeah. So, yes, so I am an agency owner, and I've owned my own marketing firm for 25 years. I started very young. No, I didn't start very young, but I've been doing that a long time, and primarily serving business to business clients, manufacturing, healthcare, and professional services. I do a lot of work with attorneys and accountants and those kind of firms. We have some other clients in different spaces too, but I guess I would say I've always seen myself in somewhat of a training role with my clients, bringing them, whether it's new technology or new ideas. The idea is to take what's your objective and apply the best platforms, the best message to reach your target audience. And so over the years, I've been asked to speak more and more over the years. Can you come and do a workshop? Can you come and train us on a particular thing? My background is in journalism, so I'm a writer by trade, not an artist. And so I started my agency based on writing, and it grew into a full service marketing firm, digital and all. And firsthand, I've been able to witness the transformation from very traditional modes of communication. I'm talking printed catalogs, printed literature, mailing things, network television, to the advent of internet marketing, to today, which is the way that I make money today as an agency owner is way different than even 10 years ago. Okay. And yeah, so that evolved, and so I got asked to speak at the University of South Florida for their on-site digital marketing certificate program, and this was pre-COVID. And then as COVID emerged, they liked me, and they asked if I would create an online version, an on-demand program that was similar to what was on ground. And so I became the faculty chair for the online version, which debuted last year. And of course, Mark, is immediately out of date, because nothing that we do in digital marketing, the minute I put anything out there, it's out of date. But the idea is that the target audience there, in the participants, are marketing folks and non-marketing folks, which we can talk about later. But the idea being that they want to gain a skill set, either hone some skills, learn some new things, or just expand their horizons. And this certificate course gets them a concentrated way of doing that. And I feel like I'm just talking to my clients, because a lot of them are in those kind of roles that I serve as an agency owner. So that's kind of the marriage of my world. And then I'm involved in a bunch of other things. I'm in the entrepreneurs organization. And I'm on some boards and things like that, but I really enjoy helping professionals move the needle. And whether that's in my role as an agency owner or my role as a faculty advisor, I love to be in that role, and it's been really, really fun. And I still love my job every day.
Well, after hearing I get the feeling that's not the half of it. As you said, you kind of glossed over and some other things, and I wonder what they are. But now I'm extra grateful that you've made the time, finding out how busy you are.
My pleasure.
There's a lot going on. I always find it fascinating how people kind of get into things, and I can sort of see that thread in the way, journalism very much about thinking about the best way to communicate and make an impact with an audience, and how do I get this across and get them to feel something, or feel what I feel, or feel what I want them to feel. Very easy to see how that translates into the natural sphere of marketing. And you've just been in this for the whole curve of it. I mean, you've seen, as you say, everything from mail shots to where we are now. So you're obviously quite comfortable with the pace of change, and just that's the only constant, isn't it, in marketing, is uncertainty and change. It's just constantly just.
It is, and it's
yeah,
it's been so rapid. I mean, again, if I even, let's say 5 years ago, it's a very short, it's a very compressed amount of change. When I worked, one of my first jobs out of college was at Progressive Insurance. I worked at an insurance company, and the internet arrived on my desk, in 1995, right? And I think now, I mean, it just while it feels a long time ago, in the space of, decades or whatever, in 2 short decades, things have just radically changed. And helping our clients and my students weather that change and embrace it rather than resist it has been, something I've enjoyed doing, but it's still, you're like, it's like sand in your hands. You think you get it. No, I don't get it. It all changed again. I gotta rework. But what I love about marketing right now is the ability to change things on the fly. I mean, not so long ago, I would put out a campaign, quote unquote campaign. That means some billboards, some TV ads, some radio ads, some print pieces. And when they were out the door, we were just, fingers crossed, let's see how it goes. And you invested all that money up front. Now in the digital space, we can see immediately something's not working and make changes immediately. What a cool way to market. I mean, that's what makes it so exciting. Nerve-wracking, but exciting.
I mean, that's it. The pace of change is amazing, but of course, it all depends how you look at it. And it sounds like you're very much of the mind that you embrace the positive aspect of this. It's not. I think some people are quite, they fear this. It's like, oh, I've just got used to X, and here comes Y, and they're telling me this is the next big thing, but I've just invested all this, and it's just. That's just the way it is, and we've just got to roll with it. And I love as well just hearing how it is a natural crossover again, the way you've working with clients. And I mean, it's not just here's a service, here's a bunch of ads and off you go. I mean, you're coaching and training and supporting and doing some mentoring, and it's very easy to see how you've that transfers very naturally to the world of more organized formal education, let's say, which is basically the same thing. So I can see the sort of symbiosis with what you do outside and inside education. In both of those kind of spheres, what's on the radar for you right now? What are you hearing in terms of what people are wanting? And that could be in terms of where and how and when they want to learn, the kind of education thing. And it could be about certain sort of topic areas or new tech, for example. It might even just be a murmur right now, but we all know that it tends to build quite quickly. So what's on your radar right now in terms of what's changing?
Let's talk first about kind of the way that people are seeking education, because I don't fancy myself a higher ed person, even though I'm delivering, training at a higher ed institution. I think that the face, and particularly got accelerated through COVID, that folks are kind of building their own educational journey through certificates. I think certificate programs like mine are kind of becoming a somewhat substitute for traditional MBA programs and master's programs, because you can pick and choose. Well, I want to learn about this topic and I can go get a certificate in this particular area, and I'm not committing, $25,000 or more and 2 years of my life. I'm doing it in bursts. And so on my LinkedIn page and on my resume, I'm like building my own educational stair steps. I think there's still a place for master's programs, to be certain, but I think that these kind of programs and the ability to take it online at my own pace, instructed by people who are in the business. So all of the instructors and my faculty are all people who are practitioners. They're not educators. I would say it's practical education. So we teach based on, I would say, conceptual things that people can take back to their workplace, not on theory, which I think more traditional education is based on theory, and then you apply the theory. Ours is, here's a concept we want you to get, no matter where you are in that spectrum of size and type of organization. Try to apply this concept to where you are. So I think it's very practical teaching, and I think that's kind of a new thing that's emerged in the educational front that I think is exciting. And given that higher education is struggling to get, asses in seats, it's about coming up with new ways to reach a population that wants to learn things, but wants to learn it in their own way. So that's on the delivery front. I think that the certificate type program is an interesting new opportunity for people. And I see a lot of universities doing that. I think it's smart.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money there. And it's not hard to see why higher ed institutions are struggling. They've always been slow to react. And I understand that, there are things like this kind of state managed accreditations are they're cumbersome and it's difficult. So, but there is an argument for working together with things. You can have both. I mean, I think the same as you. I think that, a marketing degree as such would be better just focusing on the psychology. How does attention work? How does awareness work? How does emotion engagement work? Just the things that are always going to be true because they're about human behavior and response. But as for the manifestation, implementation, action phase, don't even try, because you're committing to a 4-year degree here in Scotland, could be 3 years in other countries, and costs a fortune, as you say. And even from the time you start that course to the time it ends, things can have changed quite a lot.
Right.
I've seen courses that haven't updated their materials in several years, and in a field like marketing, you wonder.
Yeah.
So there is a case for that kind of even working together, something like what you have together with the more traditional universities, and you've got that kind of theory foundation and the agile practical component that can always be refreshed and people can always return to it. So I wonder, I mean, who are the people that are coming to you? Are the people that have done the kind of traditional marketing education beforehand, and they're like, okay, I need to refresh, need to catch up with where the world is, maybe siloed in their own companies or whatever? I mean, who's coming to you mainly?
We have a range. Most of the folks are in some kind of marketing role, which means, and so this is not an undergrad program. These are all folks that either have a degree, or if they don't have a degree, they're working in a marketing role, who are looking to refresh, either add some new skill sets. So one of my clients is actually in my course, because her business is very traditional. It has been very traditional in terms of its communication. And now they're moving in faster into digital spaces, and she wants to make sure that she's keeping up with that pace of change. I also have, and I would say title wise, I've got folks that are marketing assistants all the way up to VPs of marketing. It really runs the gamut. I also have a group of people that are not in marketing, who are adjacent, I would say marketing adjacent functions, HR, IT, legal, sales in particular, sales and marketing are lumped together, but they aren't the same. And so we've got a group of those folks coming through just to get their minds open to what marketing thinks about, making sure that they're coming. I think it brokers conversations internally between departments when someone from sales is kind of immersing themselves in a bit of marketing and vice versa. And they can come together and talk. I mean, that makes the most effective team, because marketing is one of those roles that I think is rare in a company, that it touches every other functional area in the company. And I think that that sending through folks that aren't in marketing, it will open doors to conversation. So someone came through our program and he's in marketing. He ended up sending through 65 of their sales team to our program, just to begin to get them to understand things like LinkedIn and things, we can talk about topics in a minute that are hot, but a lot of these traditional sales teams, they got squashed during COVID. They were used to trade shows and outings and customer visits and all those in-person touch points. And those were taken away. And they're left with LinkedIn going, how do I use this crazy thing? And how do I connect? What does this mean to be connected? And so I think it's kind of made some folks say, I think I need a little refresher on what's out there in the digital sphere. And a course like ours isn't going to go so in depth that they have to suddenly go out and buy digital ads as a result. It gives them enough exposure to round out their knowledge without making them professional marketers.
That's it. I mean, it's as you say, marketing is it touches so many things. Even as you say, just your personal brand. For people that are out there, want to put themselves out there. They're representing themselves, other organizations, employer branding, internal communications, or people who, I mean, obviously, the brand itself touches every aspect of the organization. And if you want to be consistent and coherent, you need to understand how it's constructed. So yeah, I mean, there's a case for everyone at least knowing a bit about marketing. And I often think about the entrepreneur as well, who just needs to know today, now, like, I need the tools to sit and get my message out, because, the investment I've put in is going to run out next Tuesday. So I need to get this going. I mean, do you get much, how do you find it? Because obviously startups, it's tricky because money's tight. But do you get many people coming in from startups, entrepreneurs coming in as well? Is it more corporate sphere?
It's mostly corporate, but I'll tell you, we do have, we have nonprofits coming in, talk about no money. They need to know how to market, particularly during COVID. They need to know how to market on very low budgets using today's tools, right? So nonprofit, we have some government representation, because they're realizing that we have publics to communicate with, and we need to do that the best way. And we do have a few entrepreneurs, although being one and associating with a lot of entrepreneurs, we think we know it all. So we probably don't have as many, because we know what to do anyway. We're all boneheads like that. We all are. We think we know more than we do. But I do have a lot of nonprofits and then, like I said, some government representation, which has been fascinating, because they've had to think about, who is my audience? And, I am, even they might be in a regulated space. How do I communicate when I got audiences that need communication, but I've got, I have to be constrained in how I present and what I say. And I've gotten good feedback that the course has helped them. Our course has a variety of modules. It has a content marketing module, a marketing automation module, some data and analytics. So how do you understand all that? A social media overview, customer experience. So we try to think very high level and then say, this is how you should apply it in your size and type of organization. And it's challenging, because there are some folks that would say, go through marketing automation and say, we use marketing automation all the time. So we have to make sure that we got some content in there that, even if you're experienced, there's a nugget or two that you can glean from that course. At the same time, I have people coming through going, what's marketing automation? I've never heard of it. Yeah. So we really try, we have a really broad range of participants, but that's what makes it fun. Being able to give feedback on assignments and spur them in the right direction. or to answer their questions, more specifically about how do I make content appealing in a very dry industry, like a government, area or something. That's what's fun about this job. It's never the same thing twice. And we can help people in a variety of positions and organizational types.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it's how you see things. Some people who come from maybe the more traditional end of education, where you've got cohorts, and I use that word intentionally, coming through in lockstep. And you can pretty much predict that they're all going to be, okay, this is where you're going. We're preparing you for this world. There's a lot of security in that, in terms of how you prepare course content and how you teach and stuff like that. But, the way you're approaching it, you're obviously kind of opening the doors to marketing and marketing adjacent professionals from all walks of life. And as you say, that I mean, it's challenging. It is. And I wonder how what's the interaction like between them? Because obviously, learning online as well, sense of community is critical to build. And you've got all this amazing, different ways of looking at things, which could be enriching if the interaction is managed well. And, so what does that look like? I mean, I'm trying to imagine all these people in the same room, sharing ideas about how they do it.
We are in the process of updating the program. I mean, again, it's only a year old, but automatically needs to be updated just because of the nature of what we're talking about. But one of the things that we're working on is enhancing that interaction and the engagement with each other and with the faculty members. So right now we've got some forum boards, and then I, as a faculty person that's looking at assignments, I have some back and forth, and there's emails, but there hasn't been a lot of live interaction. Funny is, we've tried scheduling some live Zooms, and because people say they want them, but because it's not really mandatory, because this is on demand, you can take the course as you want, we schedule it and then nobody shows up, right? So we're looking for some new ways of engaging. And in fact, we're going to use some hot topics that might not be worth creating a whole new module for, but are hot topics, which we can talk about those in a minute, about what we see as coming as hot topics, to spur discussion and to bring people together. And then we're also posing some questions on some different kind of forum boards where people can respond and interact more often. It is tough in the on-demand version, not a cohort version, to maintain that engagement.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's very, very difficult, but as you see, it's hugely enriching, and it's a lot of fun. It really is. You've mentioned a couple of times, and you've piqued my curiosity.
Yeah.
And as you're a marketer, I think you might have done it intentionally.
Maybe
for the hot topics.
Yeah.
So let's get to it. I mean, you're right there on the front lines all the time. So what I'm curious about is not just what the hot topics are, but how you know which ones have substance, and which ones are just flash in the pans as well. So, because that's a difficult thing. Oh, this is the next big thing, and it's not. It fizzles out. It's Betamax or whatever. So, how do you differentiate and what things are actually showing through?
You just aged yourself when you said Betamax, because I'm right there with you. Okay, so that's a really good point. Last year, I can give you an example. Last year, I heard the hottest topic was Clubhouse, and that we needed to have, information on Clubhouse. Well, here's what I would say about that. I would say audio is really hot, podcasts, things like this, but not necessarily a single platform. So what I like to look for is, if I hear something that's a hot topic, I like to think in the abstract. So what's a notch up from whatever specific thing you're telling me? Is there a category of learning, above that? So for example, Clubhouse, I would say, is not something that I'm going to deal with directly, but the power of audio, audio interviews, podcasts, different ways of not just, video, but I'd say it's audio and video together, and how folks are using that as a marketing tool. And that becomes the module And then under that, we can deal with some of those individual platforms, because we as an institution are platform agnostic. I'm not pushing any specific platform. We're not sponsored by anything. So we can talk about those, but they're kind of in general terms anyway. We have a lot of folks that are interested in GDPR, the end of cookies, privacy, right? So the higher topic is really, how do you deal with privacy in digital marketing? And under there are a number of things, everything from third-party data to cookies to compliance, to how do you manage your first-party data well, so that you can continue to communicate with the people that have said yes to begin with, right? So that would be a high-level topic, would be privacy and data management in a digital world. And that's something that we're pursuing actually as a new module. Another one is AI. I mean, everybody wants to know about it, but again, that spectrum of folks I have, some people going, I don't even know, how would we ever work in AI into our business? They don't realize that AI is happening all around them and in everything they do anyway. But that is another topic that folks want us to manage and deal with. And another one that I think is just general is just content. So we have a content module right now in the course, but just a deeper dive on what is good content, bad content, how do you make all the content? How do you manage a schedule and how do you have the resources to do this? There's a lot of companies that are really struggling. They know they need to have content, but it takes a lot of resources to make it and keep it out there and make it relevant and appealing and track the performance of it and all those things. So that's another topic that seems to be hot right now. And the job market, at least here, is that they don't have enough resources to begin with. How do they manage that in a very tight job market? And, what's that going to look like in the future? So those are a few examples of topics that are hot right now.
Makes a lot of sense. I really like the idea of looking for the broader, well, maybe not the broader topic, but it's almost like the underlying thing, because that's always going to be transferable. So rather than the latest app, which could be replaced, could be knocked off the podium in 20 minutes, but what is the underlying thing? People get caught up in the surface aspects quite a lot. And you mentioned GDPR there, and I gave an involuntary shiver. And I think a lot of people feel like that. But actually, when you start talking about ownership of data and privacy rights, you get into some really good discussions. And the GDPR is just, and cookies, these are just manifestations of that broader issue. So I could imagine, things like that, especially if you want to unify diverse personas with diverse backgrounds in, hot button issues and discussions. That's a great way to do it, isn't it? To take what is the big issue here.
Yeah.
And then you can update how it manifests itself and how it pops into the world of marketing all the time. Yeah. So you find people are actually very interested in things like privacy. And I guess that takes us on to, really the Web3 space and things like that. Because again, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, we've got this whole new world around the corner. And I'm not a marketer, I work in education, but I'm aware of that world. And the two things, and I wonder if you see the same thing, that I feel might be kind of really impacting it are the kind of, on one hand, you've got this generational shift, Alpha and Z coming around with different conceptions of what engagement is, of what relationship building is, different cares, wanting things like authenticity, caring about sustainability, seeing beyond the kind of greenwashing and this kind of superficial thing, and, being quite critical, actually, in the way that they view the messaging. So you've got that kind of challenge, and then you've got the tech challenge of Web3 and this whole decentralization, big, massive shift that's happening. What's going on with marketing there? Are people sort of, are people freaking out, or?
People are freaking out. And we are a little bit, because the assessment of where to put your message and your dollars and your time, it's an individual assessment per business type, what their risk threshold is on certain things. It is a time like no other, I think, to be a marketer, because there is no set it and forget it anymore. There's no start down a road of marketing and then then let it go and then check and see how you're doing, because you could miss a very big opportunity if you don't stay aware. It's like you need to have your own reach team all the time on just figuring out where to be. I think it's a really exciting time, but it's also a frustrating time for marketers. We are trying to reach our audiences who are in this you talk about decentralized, they're in all different spaces. You can't really just create a single way of reaching them. And then you got to worry about all of the details and restrictions and things like that on top of figuring out how to get your message out. I think it's a time where you're either loving marketing or you're leaving marketing. Because you're segmenting and going off somewhere on your own to maybe just go off into one niche part of it. As someone that's trying to advise businesses on what to do, it is a challenge, and something that takes kind of the dual brain of both being creative and being analytical, of being able to truly analyze what's the best paths. And then you also need that kind of requirement end of things, where you've got someone that's making sure that your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted and you're not out of compliance, because you run the risk of blowing the whole thing up if you are. So I'm in business partnership with the software engineer. That's very helpful, because he's my logical counterpart to my kind of, risky, let's go do this, let's go try this brain. He's the one going, wait a minute. process. So I think the most effective marketers are bringing the balance of process and stringent adherence to requirements alongside creativity. And there's been a lot of creative agencies out there. And I think if you don't have that balance of logic, now you're going to suffer as a marketer.
Yeah, it's come to that moment, hasn't it? I mean, this is what we talk about a lot in education. I apologize for the lighting. As one of the bulbs is gone, my background lighting, which is great timing. We talk about in education, we talk about the VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And it's been this kind of buzz phrase for a while, but I think people are really kind of realizing that we are absolutely there now, that we are in uncharted waters, and there's not that linear sense of being able to predict the next curve in the road. Right. It's changing. It's exponential. I mean, it has been for a while, but it's really now maturing when you talk about the metaverse and you talk about Web3. And not just that, because that, people think, oh, that's just technology. It's not. It's a whole difference in the conceptualization of how we communicate and who owns data and how you approach people. And it's
not marketing, it's
different.
communication. And
and you mentioned creativity as well, and I think that this is when it really shows where people have developed the skills to think in a non-linear way, and to be able to step back and think, okay, give it my best shot, and how can I approach this creatively, and how can I make the most out of an uncertain situation. So, I mean, to flip this around a little bit, rather than thinking about it as a threat, when you're talking to, and it could be clients, could be colleagues and peers, or it could be your students, what kind of opportunities do you think are out there for marketers if they really want to kind of charge in and embrace this new space? Because there's, again, change comes with massive opportunities. What are they for people? And I'm including people that are in maybe non-traditional marketing roles, people with communication and creativity skills.
The AI front holds a lot of opportunity, because there are ads being written by AI right now all the time. but it's still that whole idea of garbage in, garbage out. You have to be able to put in the right data to get the kind of results that you need. And so if there are people that are creative or wise communicators who can, who want to learn how to give AI what it needs to produce the outputs that you need on a marketing front, that's one place I think is a strong space for opportunity. I also think just on the compliance front. So weirdly, helping industries make that turn to be in compliance and yet still be able to creatively and distinctively get their message out. That balance is something I think it's a great hole. It's one I hope I'm filling for my clients, which is not just thinking creatively, but also thinking, okay, got to make sure that we're in line on the following things. That's a place of opportunity, I think, whether you've got a business background or a communications background, or you don't have a communications background, but you have a policy or process background, project management, where you're, meeting stringent requirements. That is an opportunity. And then just on the content front, huge opportunities to look at these new platforms and say, how do I take a traditional brand, maybe a conservative type brand, and put them onto platforms that they might not be familiar with or comfortable with, and still maintain their brand voice? There is space for that, because these brands don't, so they're frozen. There are a lot of big brands that are conservative are like, I can't go near TikTok. Are you kidding? We don't know what we're doing in that space. So I think there's opportunity for marketers or non-marketers to figure out ways to take traditional conservative brands and put them onto edgy new platforms. I also think the personal branding front, there's a huge opportunity there, because people do not know the power of being on podcasts, being able to share their expertise. They're experts and don't know how to share it. And I think that people share people more than they share companies. So making your people experts and giving them a platform and a voice and teaching them how to demonstrate their expertise in video and audio and those kinds of things, that content is way more shareable than a company's content about their products or services. People like to share about people. So those are some opportunities I think are out there. I think young professionals have a great opportunity right now to make a mark.
Yeah, which is exciting. I mean, if you think about it that way, and I hope people are, there will be people that rush straight in and they take full advantage of opportunities, as always. But it's interesting you talk about the ability to share expertise and to kind of come across, personal branding, because it seems to be that, there's a fragmentation of that kind of corporate structure, moving more to kind of project-based kind of gig economy structures, and freelancers moving between projects and, in different companies. So there's clearly space for that to flourish. And I always think about marketing, essentially, if it's about communication, and we come down to the individual, and how many people are out there with the most amazing ideas, the most amazing skills, the most amazing talents, causes they care about, ideas and innovations, but just can't get it across. I mean, the world of science is littered with cases like this, throughout history. So with that in mind, if we think about marketing as empowering for the individual, beyond the company, is there any, what springs to mind when I mention that, in terms of things you've seen in students, particularly, that marketing has done for them personally? I mean, I suspect that you would see a shift in almost stature and personality as people learn to carry themselves in a different way. I mean, is that striking a tone with any particular memories of cases you've seen?
Definitely. I mean, at the end of my course, I get to read their comments on the course. And there's been many who have said, I came in here thinking that I was going to get something out of this for my business, and I left getting something out of it for myself, and realizing that my communication, I mean, it comes down to it's communication, right? And this is the things they don't teach you really in college, right? Is that that you have to be able to articulate what you do well, and to confidently enter into communication or conversations with people. And now the conversations are digital. And I think that our course in particular helps folks feel more comfortable entering into the digital form of communication. I mean, I try to encourage folks to know that every email is a presentation. Every interaction is a presentation. And it's not just about what your company does, about what you do. And most of these folks are mid-level wanting to rise higher. Well, to rise higher, you got to realize that every interaction with your superior is a presentation. And you have the opportunity to tell your story well or poorly. And that propels you forward or backward. And so it's been kind of an added benefit, a bonus to this program is how many people have said, I've taken back what I've learned here and applied it to me. Realizing they have a brand, because personal brand gets tossed around, right? But most people don't really think they have one. But we all have credibility that we have to maintain. And even there's a module on content marketing, and we talk about your brand story. And the brand story is it's an arc, and it's basically there's a hero who's your customer, and he has a problem. You know, the dragon appears, and the problem is there, and then the wise guide appears, and that's you or your business, and you save the day, and the hero goes off to live a lovely life, right? And I don't think people really recognize themselves as the wise guide. And when you can see yourself as the wise guide, you'll speak wisdom and you'll hold yourself in a different place. If you see yourself as the person struggling along, as the hero who needs help, you act and behave differently. So I think it's just been a reinforcement to our students that you personally have a story to tell. You personally have a brand to share. And you can take these concepts and apply it to your business, or you can also apply it to you. And what are your stats? What are your performance statistics? What are your victory conditions for you professionally? I just love to see people grow. I love to see campaigns grow. I love to see people grow. And that's the most rewarding thing about doing this is hearing that kind of feedback. It really motivates me and makes me proud to get up every day and do what I do.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because I think that's ultimately what we're doing in education, right? I mean, it's about these stories, and of course, the companies that are sending their students along, are paying the bills and things that they have to see some impact. They've got to see some return on that, but ultimately, it's always about people. It's such an emotional, personal business education. And I think that, and I'm guilty of this, I think that marketing is it's misunderstood. It's conflated with sales for a start, in people's minds. The terminology can be so off-putting, even, personal brand. And I use that phrase myself a lot as well, but to somebody who's maybe a little bit, suspicious of that kind of messaging, that it sounds like we're commoditizing everything, and but it's just a human thing. It's just about how you communicate, how you come across, how you're the best version of yourself, and about articulating your vision and your idea and the things you care about, and getting people to care about it or connect with it in the same way that you feel, and how empowering and amazing that is. And I just don't think that message often comes through clearly enough about marketing to people who are not involved in it. And I admit feeling like that myself until I started working a little bit with marketing through communication. I was working with communication, and I was doing it contextualized with marketing. And there was a moment I remember thinking, this is so much fun. We were talking about experiential marketing. It was a few years ago, and analyzing commercials and things like that. And I thought, it's psychology, it's behaviorism, it's all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah,
that I didn't
really
realize,
When I
Yeah.
was in college, I really loved the communication theory classes like rhetorical theory and persuasion. And I really thought that my second career would be teaching those kinds of courses. But in the end, what I've discovered through my now long career is that those things are part of my life every day. Rhetorical theory and persuasion is what I do, not what I teach. And it's always exciting. And I think marketing does get a bad rap. In some places gets kind of a sleazy feel to it, when really all we're trying to do is drive leads to a team that can close the sale. And that's our job. Marketing drives leads to sales. And they are two different functions. And it's an emotional based business a lot, although now very data driven too. I love that balance too. That's now in there. But it is for me, it's a line of work that is always different. I don't like the same things twice, right? Every day is different. Every challenge, every client's got a different challenge. I still like that message matters, that the written word still drives what we do as a writer, because I can take those written words and translate it into a meme, or translate it into a video, or translate it into audio. But the written word still drives a lot of what we do, and message matters. And it's got to be relevant and meaningful and authentic in order for people to be persuaded and to glom onto it. So I love the challenge of marketing. I still like getting up every day and working in this field. And now there's even more opportunities, as you were asking before, for people to be in marketing in different roles. I think like never before. That's really, really fascinating to me. And I have 3 children, and I'm always thinking about, trying to draw them over to my area. But I've got one that's more logical, and one that's more, relational, and then one that's more sales driven. Well, there's room for all 3 of those personalities now in marketing with different things that we're doing. So I think it's a great time to be in this field.
Yeah, and it's a great time to be involved in education in the field as well, isn't it? Because you get to make the case. It's almost you can be, I would not use the word gatekeeper, but you can be the conduit into the profession. And that can be, I mean, you mentioned, okay, it's not an undergraduate role, but it can be for people who maybe haven't come through the traditional
Correct.
channels, and they've
Yes.
kind of got to a point where they've their world or their role has touched marketing, and they've thought, actually, this is maybe something for me. And so there's already that kind of interest, and you get to be that first contact with that world, which is, for some of these people, which is an amazing thing. You get to say, this is what we think it is. So it's not just day one, let's look at data analytics and GDPR. You're actually stepping back and saying, these are the issues. This is why it matters. This is how it connects to your story, to you as a human being, to all these things that we care about. And let's try and deal with it on that level, it's hugely exciting. It's really, really nice. And I wonder where you're going next. I mean, you said it's only been a year. It's obviously, as everything in marketing, as everything in education, it's a work in progress. What's next for the certificate program? Where do you think it's headed?
So we are updating a lot of the content just to make sure that we're still timely with it. So some of the content will stay. We are building out some new modules. We're modifying some of the assignments that are in there. There's, again, very practical assignments, but we're modifying those to be more B2B, B2C, nonprofit and government segmented. So if you're in a business to business, you might want to approach this assignment this way. If you're a nonprofit, think of it this way, just to make it more relevant and applicable. We are adding in, as I mentioned, we're adding in some new ways to engage with one another and with the faculty. And hopefully at some point we'll be back on ground. I love the on ground experience. At that time, it was a 4-day on ground, and you really get to know that's a cohort type model, and you get to know your classmates and build relationships and great peer-to-peer relationships. So I'm hoping that will emerge as well. But I think the program is great. USF has several certificate type programs as well. And all of them, I believe, have gotten good reviews because I think they're practical and applicable. But again, there's a place, I'm on a different university, a small liberal arts university's board, my alma mater, very traditional. I still think there's a place for all of those kinds of things. But what's great is now you and your professional roles can determine what's best for you and choose the educational path that works best for you and where you want to go in your career. That's really exciting to me in terms of, continuing ed.
Yeah, and you get to be a part of all of that, and it's great. It's nice that you're actually on the board of both those things,
Yeah.
because it's almost servicing both. You came in from the angle of communication and journalism, and then you've gotten into the nuts and bolts and how it works in companies and things like that. So you get to be involved at all stages, which is a real privilege, actually.
Yeah.
And for people that are actually looking to maybe study this program or take a look, I mean, where should they find out more information? Can they approach as individuals?
Yes.
How often is the intake? How does it work?
So you can go to University of South Florida, and I can share the URL with you. I don't know if you want to put that up when you post this, but the University of South Florida Digital Marketing Certificate Program. You can register as an individual, or if you're in a company and you want to send through a group, there are ways that we can send through a group for a discount. But I was able to get a discount code for you having me on this program. So yeah, so the discount code is MUMA65. It's the MUMA School of Business. So it's MUMA65, and that's a 65% discount on the program.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's pretty hefty discount.
I know.
Significant. Yeah.
I asked if I could get a discount. They gave me a discount code. So I will send this to you as well so that you have it and can put it in the comments or whatever. But you register online, and once you're registered, basically you get access to the modules. They use Canvas as the educational platform. So you'll get your Canvas login, and then you go at your own pace. So there is no kind of intake as far as I have to wait for a cohort. If you want to get signed up, you can do it now. And I've got students that come through and just barrel through it in a couple weeks. There's 8 modules. They take about 3 hours each. So that's about the time investment in this. But I've got some folks that just kind of go right on through. And then I have others that you can see stagger out, maybe 1 or 2 modules a week over a period of time at their own pace. And again, it really depends on whether your employer lets you do it at work or if you're doing it on your own time. But adding that certificate to your LinkedIn profile and your resume just automatically boosts your credibility in your space. So once you get your certificate, you can post that on as well. And it's a great way for you to build a resume. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds fantastic. And I took a look through it myself beforehand, and it's definitely appealing. It's got a good mix of, things like that are a bit more approachable for people like me, who am not a sort of data guy or, sort of analytics and things like that. Yeah. So, I'm sort of looking at the content part, the networking part, the community part, social media and things like that, the more relational aspects. And then looking at data and thinking, but the way it's explained, it's actually quite appealing, because it's contextualized in other stuff that I care about, so it's just, well, if you really want to know if it's working, well, you need to do this, so it's a good balance for different kinds of people and people who are coming from different backgrounds and interested in different stuff. So I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today, Sue, and I understand you're busy, so really appreciate the time. And thanks, I just wanted to ask you just if there are people out there who are, as many of us increasingly, I think, are curious about marketing, and they've come in through, journalism, communication, sales, psychology, wherever they're coming from, or they're entrepreneurs. What kind of recommendation would you give to them? Why should they actually get into marketing?
What's in it for them? For the people who are not maybe the classic marketer,
Yeah.
What how would you sell that world to them?
Well, the latest statistic is that about 80% of the population are on some kind of social media platform. And I would say that now digital marketing is the way that we communicate. It's the way that we relate to one another. It's the way that we build relationships. And they may feel synthetic at first if you're like, oh, I don't need that. But ultimately, this is where we get our news. This is where we get our perspectives. This is where we form opinions. It's where we build relationships, and we end up communicating this way, especially post COVID. This is how we have coffee now. Is this? So if I do believe that this comes down to human interaction, albeit through devices. And so if you want to improve your human interactions, whether that's personal or professional, it's helpful for you to hone your skills on the platforms and the mechanisms and the ways that we communicate today. It's essential to sales. It's essential to even friendships now, to know how to use these tools in ways that will bring benefit to one another. And it's also the way that we connect to our world at large. So I say, hop on, even though it's scary, and join us and learn how to navigate these, somewhat scary tools to build relationships that last. That's what I would say, that it's beneficial for everyone.
Wonderfully and succinctly put, Sue. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your experience, your thoughts on the future. And I'll make sure we share the information about the course with our audience who are curious to know more.
Awesome.
And very much appreciate your insights today. Apologies for the light bulb going. I hope I wasn't looking like some Phantom of the Opera kind of half light, half shadow character.
Fortunately, I've seen your picture on LinkedIn. I know what you really look like, so we're good.
Okay, good. That's good. Okay.
Thanks, Mark.
Just trying to be mysterious. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Sue. Take care of yourself. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.